away we go. Welcome to a Monday, April Fool's edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, along with our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, and Ashley Nicole Moss, who is, I guess, shaking her head about the day.
Yeah, I'm very terrified to be doing this show today with you guys. So I'm just going to be on my P's and Q's, just prepared, ready for anything. So
very behaved. No jokes coming, I promise, Ash. No jokes
I don't
coming.
believe you, Bill. That sounds like an April Fool's joke. So go ahead.
He's doing all that with his kids on location. Encourage everybody to download and follow the show wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Later in the program, the Mavs are suddenly unstoppable. The Wolves ownership drama is messy, and LeBron hit another milestone, but he admits this is going to shock you guys at 39. Not that many days left. But first, we're going to start with the news of the day. Earlier, before we started recording, there were multiple reports that Joel Embiid's return is imminent. He is scheduled to play against OKC at home tomorrow. He's been out since having meniscus surgery in early February. He traveled with the team this weekend, little team chemistry and camaraderie. He was in Cleveland and then Toronto. How big a deal is this, gang?
Huge. Ash, I know you're more skeptical than I am on the health thing, and it's a really good point. I'll just say this. I think that if he's healthy, if he should be out there, that's a big if. I love it, John. I mean, your Sixers team looked like and had the resume and the performance of a contender when he got hurt in January. And if he can get on the right side, the non-Celtic side of the Eastern Conference bracket, Ash, I don't know. I think somebody's got to make it to the conference finals. I think magic is possible for this team.
I just feel like that's a big if, and I don't know if I'm willing to gamble that if with a player who has chronically been plagued with injury his entire career, and those injuries have come at the worst possible time, and there's been a direct domino effect to how it affects what this team is able to accomplish. Look, I'm not going to say that the 76ers are not better without Joel Embiid, and that when he gets on the floor, whether he's 80%, 70%, 90%, that they're going to look better. But I just wonder, at what cost do you make that risk when this is not a team? John says it all the time. This is the Celtics. It's the Celtics, and then there's everybody else, right? So in a realistic vacuum, what are the chances for the 76ers to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals? What is the chances for the 76ers to make it out of the East? And if those are very slim chances, then why do you risk the health of a player who's probably not 100% when you can start fresh with him next season? And for the first time in possibly his entire career, you have a healthy Joel Embiid to start your season. I don't know if I'm taking the risk. That's just me.
20 to 30%, John, if you win the 7-8 game. If you are playing the Bucks in the first round of the actual playoffs and you avoid, obviously, the Boston Celtics, you got to go through the Heat and then Milwaukee.
You gotta beat the Heat in the play-in game, and then all of a sudden you get Milwaukee, which sounds kind of nice because if you don't, then you end up with the Celtics in the first round, and that's going to be a bummer. To Ashley's point, it looks like it's pretty baked here. They only have 7 games left, including tomorrow's game against Oklahoma City, right? So they're a game and a half behind the Heat for 7th, and they're 2 games behind the Pacers for 8th. So unless something like really unusual happens here, they're going to be in that 7-8 play-in game. You got to get past the Heat, and then all of a sudden, who knows? And I did ask around. I still know a bunch of people in and around the organization, and like the idea of what's happening here isn't surprising. Number one, Joel Embiid wants to play. He missed 2 seasons to start his career, and it's tough to I'm with you, Ash, that like you don't want to risk further injury, and like what are the chances of them actually doing something significant and meaningful in the playoffs? Probably not that much, but the guy wants to play, and it's hard to tell him no. And then on top of that, they look at the rest of the Eastern Conference and they go, why not us? I mean, it's the Celtics, and then it is everybody else. So to that extent, I get it because they were really good with him. So if he is healthy, this could maybe be something.
I'm definitely not saying that they're not better with him. I just don't know. I mean, let's be realistic. Just because you're able to play or you're cleared to play rather doesn't mean you're 100%. He probably is coming back before he's 100% ready. So I just use that as my gauge. When you already have a player who chronically gets injured, not being 100% is a big deal, especially when you're talking about the focus of your team, the nucleus of your team, which is what Joel Embiid is. And I just don't know if Eastern Conference is not a realistic goal, if coming out of the East is not a realistic goal because of what the Eastern Conference looks like right now, and you've already missed so much time. I don't understand necessarily what the rush is when you know he's coming back next season. Now, granted, he's not 25 years old, but isn't that even more of a reason why you have a 30-plus-year-old player? You want him as healthy as he can be for an entire season to see what this team can look like. They looked good when he was on the floor. The 76ers looked good post James Harden. I don't know. I don't know if I take the gamble. That's just me. Again.
I think your points are the reason I go for it if he's healthy enough. You have to take every opportunity you can with Joel Embiid. There will never be a moment for me where he will step on the floor and I won't hold my breath when some sort of high-impact play happens. Like, you're always going to be worried about Embiid's injuries. And I think that it's easy to forget that when he was on the floor for the first 46 games of the year, he missed a quarter of those games, by the way. So through January, this was a championship level team. This wasn't, no disrespect, or maybe disrespect to these teams, this wasn't the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Knicks before OG got traded to them and got hurt, or for me, the Timberwolves. I know not for John. It wasn't one of these second-tier teams you had to sort of close your eyes and maybe imagine they could win the whole thing. This was a team at that point that was in the top 10 offensive rating, top 10 in defensive rating, which we've talked about as an important stat, fourth in net rating over the time before he got hurt. John, that's why I think you go for it if it's not too much of a risk, because this was the second best team clearly in the Eastern Conference and one of the 4 or 5 teams that I think was very reasonable to say they can win the whole thing. And it's a harder path now because of the games they've lost and the fact they've fallen to that first play-in. But if you can win that play-in game, there is a world, I think, where Philly is real. The Heat did it last year. It is not an impossibility, and this team is really good when Embiid's on the floor.
The Heat were the Heat were the second team in NBA history to do it. It's not a high possibility.
Well, the play-in hasn't been around for 20 years, right? I mean, the play-in has not been around for very long.
The Heat being an 8th seed and going to the finals has only happened once before then. That means it's not a high possibility.
But out of how many times?
Which proves my point.
The play-in hasn't been happening for that long. The play-in's relatively new.
No.
So, I mean,
what I'm saying is that an 8th seed advancing
but it can happen.
The finals has not happened. It only happened once before Miami, which means whether you put the play in or not, it's not a high possibility for a seed that low to advance all the way. It just hardly ever happens.
I think this is an exception, Ash, if Embiid's healthy. I mean, I think they're a championship level team, John, at the 8th seed.
Let's not just lock them into the 8 automatically. They're going to be in the 8 going into the play-in, but if they can beat the Heat in that first game, then all of a sudden you get the Bucks, and now you're the 7, and it's like, maybe. They were 26-8 with Joel Embiid before he went down, and to Bill's point, they were a top 10 offensive and defensive rated team, which is not nothing. It's actually quite something. So they looked really good. Now it depends on what kind of Embiid you're getting back. And I just want to mention this before we move on. Joel Embiid has been injured a lot. He's 30 years old. Interestingly, he has 3 years left on his contract, which makes him extension eligible this offseason. And I was looking at the numbers. They could give him, Joel Embiid, a 2-year extension this offseason, which would kick in 2027. The 2-year extension would be worth $129 million, which if you do the math, and I did, the average there is $64.5 million. At 30 years old, the most games he's ever played in his entire career, 68 games. That's the high water mark. Are you giving 30-year-old Joel Embiid, often injured, missed the first 2 years of his career, just came off another meniscus surgery, $64.5 million extension times 2 years this offseason? He is the franchise.
Yeah, they are giving it to him. Yes.
I mean,
I'm not.
You're asking, would I, or if I am the 76ers?
Well, none of us have the money, so I'm asking if the Sixers should.
They should not, and they will.
Yeah, they should and they will. Now, would I do it? I don't know if I would be as willing to open my wallet because of the reason that you mentioned. He's 30 years old. He's chronically injured. But the 76ers don't really have another option, although they are a well-orchestrated team or constructed team, rather. Joel Embiid is very much the top of the pyramid, and you lose him, everything else doesn't matter. So you don't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I mean, if he'll sign it, they should absolutely offer it to him and make him sign it because of course they want to keep him around for as long as they possibly can. All right. I want to move on to the hottest team in the NBA right now. The Dallas Mavericks cannot be stopped. They ran into the previous hottest team in the NBA, the Houston Rockets, and the Mavericks handled them pretty easily. They've now won 11 of their last 12. They snapped the Rockets' 11-game winning streak. By the way, That was the worst offensive game for the Rockets in like 2 months. And part of that is because the Mavericks suddenly are playing really good defense. They held held the Rockets to 106 points in that game.
Their defensive rating over the last 12 games is 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
fourth.
better than Denver, better than Boston, better than everybody, but look, I'm not there. I know you guys are, but I don't know. I don't know what to say. They're playing amazing basketball. Actually, they are playing amazing
basketball in the NBA right now being played in the state of Texas between those two teams.
I mean, listen, I think that, we've all, I feel like collectively have kind of had our concerns about the Mavs for a bunch of different reasons. I think the biggest reason probably is the combination of Luka and Kyrie, and can they figure out how to play together? Also, Luka is not a player who is committed to defense as some of, his counterparts may be, and that's always been a strike against him. I know Bill has brought up on this pod several times, that throughout the league, there are a lot of people who wonder if you can even win with Luka when you're talking about championships. So I don't know if this completely takes away all of those questions, but it is very impressive that they are gelling at this point of the season going into the playoffs. I don't know if this means that, all of a sudden, they're the favorites to come out of the West. No, but I do think that there may be more hope for this version of the Dallas Mavericks than I think a lot of people, including myself, gave them credit for.
So skepticism is not the same thing as surety, and I've certainly been skeptical of these guys. Let me say this in their defense, and I think it goes to conversations that you and I, Ash, have had about Phoenix, and how, for me, obviously, John, we've all talked about how disappointing Phoenix has been, but my main point is it takes a long time, sometimes a season or more, or at least a season for stars to learn to play together. I'm not a big Doc Rivers guy, but maybe that's part of what's going on in Milwaukee. And if they don't live up to expectations, it may not be a fair sample size. This is year 2 of Luka and Kyrie, and I have 25 games or 20. They got very few games together, very few games last year, and they played very few games together at a certain point this year. And so, in fairness to them, they might just be hitting their stride as a duo. And I'm not sure defensively this is real, like over a 82 game sample size, John, but in fairness to these two guys, it does take superstars a while to play together. They haven't had a ton of time together. This is year 2, and it was limited last year. Maybe this is closer to what they are together than not, because they're finally getting the time that they need to get in rhythm as a duo.
I think them being good offensively is not a surprise. They've certainly been good offensively all season long, and then definitely over this last 12 games where they've won 11 in a row. The defense thing is intriguing, though, and we talked about this with Avery Johnson on Friday, and the reason why it's interesting is because it coincides with Jason Kidd going, oh yeah, I gotta fix this, and he changed the lineup, and he put Daniel Gafford at center, and he put their best on-ball defender, Derek Jones Jr., into the starting lineup, and now all of a sudden, when you take Gafford out at center, you've got Lively, who just got dinged up a little bit, but they had 2 rim-protecting, rim-running centers and an awesome, lengthy, getting it up in your business defender in Derek Jones Jr. And it kind of like papers over some of the other problems that you have with Luka and Kyrie defensively. So I give Jason Kidd full marks on this. And we should also give Luka full marks because he's been lights out over this last 12 games. I don't know if you saw any of that game yesterday, but before the game, he had this ridiculous trick shot. Yeah. And then he made an underhand scoop from basically just like a step inside the 3-point line.
That was dumb. That was
luck. It was insane.
It
was insane. Yeah. But we talked last week about SGA being in the MVP convo. It's still going to be Joker, but I think Luka's right there with SGA right now. He's killing it.
Oh, no,
SGA.
For sure. I mean,
I do.
Yeah. I mean, game winner last night, dagger to the heart. But different conversation for a different day. No, but I think the thing about Luka that probably gives him, earlier in the season, obviously Luka's name I feel like is always in the MVP conversation, whether he is the MVP or not. That just happens when you're a star. I feel like you're always kind of in the mix. But I think that the way that Luka has been at the forefront, and Kyrie too, but Kyrie will be in that conversation for different reasons. I think that the way that Luka has been at the forefront of turning this team around and really making it look like this is a team that we might have underestimated. I don't know if you go as far as when they come out of the West, but this could be a team that makes to the Western Conference Finals and faces the Denver Nuggets. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. That's how well they are playing, and that's how well they are playing at the perfect time. that they could be the team that you see battle against the reigning champs to go ahead and come out the West.
I mean,
They
before we
could.
go that far, I just want to say, look, they're in the 5th seed right now, right? I mean, like if you're the Clippers, you're like, man, I don't like any of this. None of this is going good. At 4-5 matchup against the Mavs would be interesting.
Would you right now, obviously the Nuggets, I feel like are the team that are going to be in the Western Conference Finals, okay? But the other team right now, would you put more money on the Mavs or the Clippers to be their opponent?
Clippers.
Bill, you're the gambler. You go first.
I mean, Clippers. Look, I was going to say this. You guys are so optimistic and so positive, and I love it. And they're on an amazing run. But how many times this year has a team gotten on some amazing run, and those of us that love hoops like, oh, this team could be this. I mean, yeah, maybe this 12-game sample size is who they are. And I think they're certainly better than advertised. I'm not ready to crown them yet conference finals, arrivees. I would take the Clippers. I would take, especially if they're playing each other.
In a 4-5 series, then I might take the Mavs on the other side. We'll discuss that. But you're right about teams that get hot and then sometimes don't make it in. One of those teams is going to be the Rockets. It looks like they're going to be, in the history of the NBA, there have only been 4 teams that have gone on 10-game winning streaks or better and missed the playoffs. And it looks like we're about to have a 5th. Unless the Rockets can get hot again, the Warriors fall off, but it doesn't look that way. And one more thing, one more note from the Western Conference before we take a break here. Nuggets and the Thunder have clinched their playoff berth, so they're in. Not surprisingly, they were going to be in anyway, but we're starting to see those teams stack up a little bit. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, LeBron James keeps doing LeBron stuff, and then he was asked about how long he's going to be around. We'll hear his answer. That's next.
One last shot to seal their fate. Who will earn the chance to be champions? It's the Coppa Italia semi-finals on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Ashley's here, Bill's here, I'm John Gonzalez. We encourage everybody to check us out on YouTube. You can find our page, Beyond the Arc CBS. Subscribe to it, hit the like button. You can also turn on notifications to find out when we go live, and then sometimes stop down and restart. So you get to see all kinds of fun stuff. All right, so LeBron James and the Lakers beat the Nets last night. LeBron had 40 points in the win. He also hit 9 threes. He was 9 of 10. That tied a career high. He was on fire. Gang, he joins Jordan as the only 2 players to go for 40 or more points more than once when they're 39 years or older. So, in terms of longevity and keeping up their ability, it's just 2 guys in the conversation. But afterwards, LeBron was asked, hey, man, you are getting kind of old. How much longer do you plan on doing it? And this is what he said.
Not very long. Not very long. I'm on the other side, obviously at a hill, so I'm not going to play another 21 years. That's for damn sure. But not very long. I don't know when that door will close as far as when I'll retire, but I don't have much time left.
All right. So on the one hand, this is like not surprising, right? I mean, he's 39. We know that he doesn't have that much time left. On the other hand, he's LeBron. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon.
Can I just give my reported experience that is not going to be super, I don't know, kind is the wrong word. I've covered LeBron. I spent a lot of my early career like being around the guy every single day. I like LeBron, but LeBron is more aware of the power of his words than any athlete. He doesn't say anything on accident. And I like him, Ash and John, but to me, this is just a looking around like, man, I need some attention. LeBron's an attention guy, okay? I can remember once. Actually, I can remember once.
He was asked the question.
I mean, dude, he's asked every question every day of every process ever. This is like, I'm going to tell this story. This is classic LeBron. In the Big 3 era, he got all the attention. But occasionally, like D-Wade would say something or have a game, and for 30 seconds, the attention would move to Wade, who's one of his best friends. And I remember one of those moments on the beat, 50 people surrounding Wade on the road, nobody talking to LeBron. I can't remember why. And a shoe hit me in the side of the head. I'm like, who the hell threw that? It was LeBron messing around, throwing a shoe to get attention. It happened to hit me. That's how I remember it. My point is, dude, he knows exactly when he's retired. I don't know when it is. It's probably a few years. He has a plan. This is LeBron just like enjoying, just turning the spotlight to him a little bit so we'll all talk about him. That's 100% what this is. 100%.
I feel like you have a little bit of animosity because a size 15 shoe smacked you in the head.
Oh, no. LeBron, look, I am the first to admit, along with like Brian Windhurst and George Sedano and Dan Lebitard, and Lebitard was, you cover LeBron and you just sort of hold on for the ride. It makes your career. I'm not Like, I love LeBron. LeBron is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm the biggest LeBron guy on earth in terms of covering him, but it ain't animosity. He's an attention hog. He is. That's fine.
I mean, okay, look. To John's point, he was asked a question. I mean, he didn't just, tweet this out like, I don't know how much longer I have to play. Now, to Bill's point, does he know? I feel like he knows. I feel like at this stage in his career, he has a number, he has a milestone, he has a moment where he knows that once that happens, he's gonna probably hang it up. I feel like for me, he constantly talks about playing with Bronny. I do think that, or playing against Bronny. I do think that for him, after that happens, I do think that's probably, his marker, his flag in the sand, if you will. Like, okay, after this, I'm done. But him saying, I don't know how much longer at 39 years old with gray spots and balding spots in it, like, we know this. Like, it's not breaking news. Like, he looks old in that video. No disrespect to the 39 and up crew. Just want to put that out there. But he doesn't look like young LeBron. We know he doesn't have much more time left. So it's like, it's not even breaking news to even like dissect like this. We know this.
Hairline aside, he kind of still does look like younger LeBron, right? I mean,
no, I meant like hair. Like hair.
Yeah.
I noticed the gray too. No, there's a lot of gray up. Yeah.
Hairline aside, physically, he's a marvel.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
We talked about Jordan and he being the only guys to go for 40 or more at this age, right? Jordan played until he was 40 and he was cooked at the end. I mean, his game wasn't really his game anymore. He played a totally different style. It was much slower.
He was still averaging 20 points a game though.
He was. He averaged 20 points a game for a Washington team where he was backing dudes down in the paint and playing slow-mo YMCA games. LeBron is still running the floor, throwing down thunder dunks, blocking people from behind. Right. He can still influence a game. We've talked about the Lakers potentially, like, who knows if they could make a run or whatever. Those Washington Wizards teams were nowhere at all. So I think it's really impressive that LeBron is still of this caliber. I think he could easily play another 4 or 5 seasons if he wants to. The thing that I find amusing about this whole thing, though, is LeBron going, yeah, I don't have that much time left, whatever. We will know when LeBron is retiring because it'll be the longest farewell tour of every city that he goes to. Will be a massive celebration. When he was asked previously, he goes, I might pull a Tim Duncan and just vanish. 0% chance that he pulls a Tim Duncan. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
By the way, Ash, I just looked it up. Jordan averaged 19 shots a game to get his 20 points a game. Here's the other thing. That's hilarious. I love Mike. Here's the other thing. There's no world where LeBron James is retiring ever when he can score 40 points in games that actually matter, because the Lakers games to a degree. He loves the game so much. There are a lot of guys who don't love basketball who play basketball. He is not one of them. If he can go out and score 30, he'll play till 46 if he can. I don't think he'll play that.
I actually don't know if that's true.
You don't think he'll? I think he's playing till like 45.
The only reason I say that I don't think it's true is while I agree with you, he loves playing and he really eats, breathes, sleeps basketball. He likes winning. And I think that being on losing teams, being in a losing situation is very frustrating for him. And not being a true playoff team, not seeing the finals, not seeing the conference finals is very frustrating to him. And I think that supersedes whether or not he can drop 30 points in the game, because no one's ever going to question that. But for him, it's that legacy. It's that, Jordan's still the GOAT. Jordan has this many rings. Kobe has this many. He's chasing that. And I think that he'd rather, this is just me, armchair diagnosing him, if you will. But I personally think that he would rather walk away with the memory of this is the dominance of LeBron James at 40 years old than continually being on a team that's not going to reach the promised land that he's accustomed. It's no different than Brady. I mean,
to your legacy point,
Brady could still play football, but does he want to be on a losing team doing it? I don't think so.
Brady won a Super Bowl, his second to last year at Tampa Bay.
The following year, the only reason he came back was because he thought he was going to be able to do it again, and when he did it, he was like, "Yeah, I'm done."
To your legacy point, I think, John, I think racking up the assists and getting as high on that board as he can is important. 2 more years gets him to Bronny and year 23, and this is Aaron who pointed this out, and have 1 more year than Vince Carter. And I think I think he has very wisely, guys, set up this idea that he can leave the Lakers to play with Bronny. If Bronny goes to a team that's a competitive team, then LeBron can choose in a couple of years the Lakers if they're more likely, or go play with Bronny and insert whatever Memphis, Oklahoma City, the Knicks. I don't know, wherever he ends up. And people aren't going to say that he's ring chasing. They're going to say that he's just going to be a good dad. I think Ash, he can still win in the years ahead.
Listen, they are 9 games over 500. I mean, it's not like he's on a bad team. It's just that the West is really loaded. If I'm LeBron, I'm looking at this going, all right, look, the West is loaded, but we still have a good team. I'm still performing at a top level. And not for nothing, this is something that we've brought up previously. The Lakers in the offseason will have 3 first-round picks that they could trade in order to upgrade the roster. So I think LeBron, because he is arguably the GOAT, and because his competitive spirit is undiminished, he's going to look at this and go, I'm not going anywhere yet. I think that this team can get better.
My follow-up for you then is a good team, yes. A winning team, I don't know.
Well, what are they going to do in the offseason?
Looking at the Western Conference now, right? We've had this conversation several times. You and I have had it by ourselves. We've had it as a trio. The new wave, the young bucks of the Western Conference aren't going anywhere. The Warriors, the Lakers, they're starting to fall. Yes, you'll always be a good team if you're LeBron, you have LeBron James on it, but will you be a winning team? And that's the conversation that I'm talking about. Like, yeah, he'll always be competitive, but he's not going to win in that conference when the talent is getting younger and he's getting older. That for me is a big deal.
I think he loves to hoop. I think he loves to hoop, and I think even if he's not winning titles, I think he's playing.
Okay, so you're putting love over winning. Okay, I'm not.
But
I think he will. I'm not choosing for him.
I mean, I'm not losing my mind here. I mean, they have a winning record there. You know, who knows? What if they go out in the offseason, and we've discussed this previously, and, you know, Donovan Mitchell was just asked about it the other day. Hey, you're going to sign that extension because Dan Gilbert said that you were. And he was like, I'm not really talking about that right now or thinking about that right now. What if they had Donovan Mitchell? I mean, that's a nice upgrade to their team.
Yeah, sorry. They are going to
get somebody.
Mitchell, or don't get Trae Young, but they're going to go big game hunting for somebody. Maybe it's Trae Young, maybe it's Donovan Mitchell. They're going to make – that's a great point, John made. They're going to make a run. Is Donovan Mitchell and Anthony Davis – is that duo good enough to compete if LeBron is your third best player? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, look, all I know is that at 39 years old, yes, he doesn't have a ton of years left. I just don't see him pulling the ripcord just yet. I mean, he wanted us to talk about it for 10 minutes and it worked. That's why he made that comment. He's got a couple more. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And then we have to, because we haven't gotten to this yet, discuss the never ending and very entertaining Wolves ownership drama. That's on the other side.
You came down here to tell us that your date is missing.
I did not get ghosted. I think he was taken.
You were dating as a way to face your divorce. Was I really the only thing holding you together, D?
Damn.
Ready or not,
I am in search of a man with whom I had a beautiful connection.
You can't hide.
If anything feels off, we'll go. Off.
Murderer.
Who are you?
Diara.
Diara?
Find you.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. This is a story I've been waiting to talk about because it's so messy. It's so much fun. There's so many layers here. So for people who have missed it, the Timberwolves have been kind of in like a protracted, drawn out sale period. Now, the current owner, Glenn Taylor, he's 82 years old, and he previously had said he was going to sell a majority stake to 2 people, Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez, right? So that he initially agreed to sell the Timberwolves and the Lynx, which is their W team, for $1.5 billion. But since this whole thing got kicked into gear, a whole bunch of other teams have been sold. The Suns went for $4 billion. Mark Cuban sold a partial stake for $3.5 billion. The Hornets went for $3 billion. And I think all of a sudden, Glenn Taylor went, what am I doing? So he kind of like slow rolled this thing. That's at least what Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez say. From the other side, he says, well, they didn't come up with the money. But in any event, all we know is that Glenn Taylor says he is no longer selling a controlling stake in the franchise to those guys. And stuff really hit the fan after that happened. A-Rod came out and said, we can be in this fight for 5 years or 10 years, whatever. We're not going to let it go. Basically betting against the actuarially table against Taylor, who's 82 years old.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's
Yeah.
true, right? Glenn Taylor apparently has barred both of them from the back hallways of the arena and communication with team executives. This thing is spicy, and I love it.
And they have paid in installments, so it's not as if they were going to
Yes.
put all the money. They are partial owners. They just don't have a. And can I just say this too? I'm not normally one to root for A-Rod. I'm sort of A-Rod agnostic, but any guy who can lose J-Lo and his NBA team in the same sort of cycle of his life, that sucks. Brutal. Don't do this.
Times for A-Rod. I think he's
doing okay, Bill. He's got a new girl and he's worth $500 million.
Would you rather have J-Lo or the Timberwolves? J-Lo or the Timberwolves? J-Lo.
It's interesting, right? Because I mean, A-Rod was very much like on the Timberwolves. Bill, I'm ignoring you. Okay.
I know you are.
A-Rod's has been very much front and center at a lot of these Timberwolves games, whether it's in Minnesota. I've seen him at games in Miami all the time. Like, he's kind of been starting to lay the groundwork for like, this is my team. I'm front and center. Kind of like Mark Cuban when he was owner of the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, he's still very much involved with the team, but he doesn't have that ownership anymore. So this is kind of insane. Like, this is kind of crazy. I wonder, though, if there's legal ramifications to, if they're just going to go into, like, litigation and just sue the hell out of each other.
Yeah, they're going to sue the hell out of each other.
Mark Lure said that they're going to use every ounce of effort here to enforce the contract that Glenn broke. Basically, the way that it worked out, as Bill said, they kind of, like, started paying in installments. So right now it's roughly like a 60-40 split in favor of Glenn Taylor. And now all of a sudden that's interesting because Glenn Taylor is sort of like notoriously cheap with the Wolves. This is clearly the best team that he's ever had. They are looking up, but next season they're going to be in the second apron. So they're going to hit that tax big time. So basically what he has done here is get Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lure to chip in so that they'll have to pay 40% of that second apron tax. So he gets a little discount and he still gets to control the team. It's kind of actually evil genius on his part.
It's an episode of Succession meets Billions. I mean,
Hey, that was my line.
You already say it?
No, but yeah, it very much.
I saw your line. It just got in there. It's a good line.
Because there was an episode of Billions. I don't want to spoil. I mean, the show's been up. If you haven't watched
you can
by now,
spoil it.
Whatever. I don't care. This is me spoiling a show that you probably should have already watched. But there was a part in Billions, a season in Billions, where Bobby Axelrod was trying to buy the Giants or the Jets, I think. It was a football team. I believe it was in New York. And they wouldn't let him buy it because, like, you have to have, like, a squeaky clean image, apparently. It's, like, whatever. And Mark Cuban actually made an appearance. So, like, this is just funny how, like, the connection comes. It's not relevant to this. It's just, I just want to put that out there. That's all.
It's also bad for the league, by the way. I mean, it's funny and it's interesting, and it will be settled in court because you're right, John. Laura and Rodriguez are saying we fulfilled the contract, and Taylor did not. And Taylor is saying they missed a payment. So there's some technicalities and some crossing of T's and dotting of I's that it's going to be decided in the courts almost certainly. If you're Adam Silver, you don't want one of your most interesting potentially teams, and I think most interesting young players in the NBA, Anthony Edwards. You don't want the story to be the ugliness between owners fighting over who. It's like Game of Thrones. Who's in control? We don't know, and you're barred from this, and we're gonna wait you out, old man. It's not great for the NBA itself.
Well, my question for you guys is, because I don't, let's say, like, this situation, if it's not A-Rod and that ownership group that eventually, or that investment group that eventually gets the ownership of the Timberwolves, doesn't this kind of leave like a bitter taste in the mouths of anyone who can afford to buy this team? Like, oh, this is what we have to deal with. Look what they did to A-Rod and this guy when they were on the verge of buying this team. Like, how do I know he's not gonna, like, why? Eventually, like, you're gonna want to sell this team, I believe, and you're gonna want to try to get the most value you can for it, especially as this team continues to get better and more eyes continue to be on this team. I feel like this is not smart business. That's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it.
When the team gets sold, it's going to go to Lure and Rodriguez. It's just the question of how long is that going to take, which is why A-Rod's like, look, man, we'll just wait you out. Like you're 82. It's basically like asking LeBron how much time he has left. Glenn Taylor does not have that much time left. He is
John,
on
that's
this.
so messed up.
But that's listen. I didn't say it. A-Rod
which
said
is amazing.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, but that's the actuarial
saying.
table says that he doesn't have that much time left, and like A-Rod knows it, and Mark Lord knows it, and Glenn Taylor certainly knows it. But Glenn Taylor, I mean, he has been an NBA governor. He bought this team in 1994, and I think he finally woke up and went, "What am I doing? I'm selling this and the W franchise for like pennies on the dollar compared to what the Hornets went for."
I think that's
crazy
the key
for
point.
me. Yeah. By the way, do you guys want to guess how much Glenn Taylor bought the team for in 1994?
Yes, $700,000.
I
just straight guess. I don't know. Did I get it right?
No.
Maybe.
I'm bad at trivia.
5 million.
You guys are so incredibly far off. I thought that you would.
How much?
94 million, which no matter what, 94 million.
The amount of a house.
700,000 is really, really funny.
It was low. I'm bad at trivia. I've told you guys.
The point here is that when he put in 94 million in 1994, whatever he gets out of this is going to represent an insane ROI, right? Like his return on investment here is going to be ridiculous. But I do think he looked at it and went, I really screwed up on the initial selling price, the initial offer price, because the selling prices have exploded through the roof. I guarantee you he can get more money for that now. And, you know, as we mentioned, the man likes money.
Who cares? But how much money do you need?
He is evidently the richest person in Minnesota. That's something else I found out.
Is that like how rich is Minnesota? I'll
be the richest person in any state. I'll take it. Send me to that state. I'm in.
Rhode Island. Impressive like it is in New York? Like the richest person in New York's impressive. Minnesota, like what's the?
Actually, he owns an NBA team that he did not buy for $700,000.
Man, I just think it's really amazing that you have this octogenarian rattling around that arena, refusing to sell, and then borrowing A-Rod and Mark Lore from the arena and from talking to officials. It's so good. You know what? I want to say thank you to. I want to say thank you to the Minnesota Timberwolves, because the Philadelphia 76ers for the last decade have easily led the NBA in drama. The Wolves are
everybody for Philadelphia 76ers. Stomp your feet, everybody for Philadelphia 76ers.
What is happening?
I didn't expect that. Aaron hit me with the song. Ashley hates that song. I didn't anticipate it being played right there. I do like it though. It's pretty catchy. It's a bop.
It's horrible.
It's pretty awesome song.
Thank you, Bill. This is the worst. Next to Fly,
terrible.
Fly is one of the worst songs I've ever heard in my life. Like,
well, it's gonna warm. You're gonna warm up to it. But we're not gonna play it anymore. We're at the end of the show here. For now, I want to say on behalf of Ashley and our NBA insider Bill Ryder, who he and I will be on CBS HQ this evening after the evening game. So if you want to talk and listen a little bit more about basketball, come catch us there. But Ashley and I will be back at it tomorrow. And in the interim, we want to say thanks for tuning in, everybody.